Imagine you're leading the Dakar, the hardest race on Earth. You're in a car, flat out across the desert, kicking up a rooster tail of sand behind you. You check your mirror, and filling it closing on you, 10 tons of screaming diesel, taking off over the crest of a dune and landing like it weighs nothing is a truck. Not a support truck, not a service vehicle, a racing truck. A machine the size of a small house, with 1,000 horsepower, that is somehow, impossibly, catching a rally car in open desert. That truck is a Kamaz, and for the better part of 30 years, it was the single most dominant machine in the entire history of the Dakar Rally. A Soviet-born monster that flew over dunes, crushed the finest teams in the world, and won the truck category 19 times. This is the story of the craziest truck in Dakar history. To understand why a 10-ton truck flying through the air is one of the great spectacles in all of motorsport, you first have to understand the race it conquered. The Dakar is not a normal rally. When it began in 1978, it ran from Paris, in France, all the way south across the Mediterranean and deep into Africa through Algeria, Niger, Mali, and onward to the Senegalese capital of Dakar on the Atlantic coast, roughly 10,000 kilometers, weeks of racing. Across some of the most hostile terrain on the planet, endless seas of sand dunes, rock fields that destroy suspension, dry riverbeds, and open desert with no roads at all, where a navigator's mistake could leave a crew stranded in the emptiness for days. It was, and remains, the most dangerous and demanding race in the world. Competitors have died on it. So have spectators, journalists, and bystanders. The event's own founder, Chagin, was killed in a helicopter crash during the 1986 edition, caught in a sandstorm. The race is a war of attrition unlike anything else in motorsport, where a Formula One Grand Prix lasts under 2 hours and a normal rally a few days. The Dakar goes on for 2 weeks or more. Every single day, another few hundred kilometers of flat-out racing across terrain designed by nature to break machines and men. Vehicles don't just get beaten at the Dakar, they get destroyed. Every year, a huge percentage of the field simply fails to reach the finish. Engines cooked, suspensions shattered, crews lost in the dunes, machines swallowed by sand. Later, for security reasons, the race would leave Africa entirely, relocating to South America in 2009, running through Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, and Peru, climbing over the Andes to altitudes of 4,500 meters, where the thin air starved engines of oxygen and left crews lightheaded and gasping. Later still, it would move again to the vast dune fields of Saudi Arabia. But wherever it went, the essential nature of the Dakar never changed. It is a test of survival as much as speed. And the Dakar has a peculiarity that makes it unlike almost any other race on Earth. It runs multiple categories at once, on the same terrain, at the same time: motorcycles, cars, and trucks. Enormous, purpose-built racing trucks, competing in their own category but running the very same brutal stages as everything else. Which means that out in the desert, a rally car and a racing truck can find themselves on the same piece of sand at the same moment, and sometimes the truck is the faster of the two. No truck was ever faster or more dominant than the Kamaz. Kamaz is a Russian company. The initials stand for Kamsky Avtomobilny Zavod, the Kama automobile plant, based in the city of Naberezhny Chelny in the Republic of Tatarstan. It is not, in its day job, a maker of exotic racing machines. It is the largest truck manufacturer in Russia, a builder of rugged, heavy-duty industrial and military vehicles designed to work in the most punishing environments on Earth, from the frozen forests of Siberia to blistering deserts. The company was founded in 1969, and the first truck rolled off its line in 1976. Durability is in the company's blood. Its trucks were built to keep working when everything around them failed, in places where a breakdown could be fatal, and the nearest workshop was 1,000 kilometers away. And it turned out that durability was exactly what the Dakar rewarded above all else. Kamaz made its Dakar debut in 1990, a nearly unknown quantity from a country most Western fans knew nothing about, arriving from the collapsing Soviet Union into a race dominated by the great European names. The racing operation became known as Kamaz Master, and it was staffed not by professional racing drivers but by engineers and test drivers from the factory itself, men who understood these trucks down to the last bolt. For a few years they learned and improved and crept closer to the front, and in 1996, just 6 years after arriving, a Kamaz won the truck category of the Dakar for the first time, driven by Viktor Moskovsky. The Russians had broken through, ending the dominance of the established European truck makers and announcing that a new force had arrived in the desert. But the first victory was only the beginning. What came next was one of the most extraordinary runs of dominance in the history of any motorsport, and at its center was one man, Vladimir Chagin. Chagin joined the Kamaz effort in the mid-1990s. Born in 1970, he came up through Russian rally raid at a time when the discipline was still finding its feet in the country. His first Dakar, in 1996, ended in 30th place, an unremarkable debut for a man who would go on to rewrite the record books. That same year, though, he showed his promise elsewhere, winning a grueling supermarathon rally that ran all the way from Paris through Russia to Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. The talent was obvious. It just needed time and the right truck to turn into dominance. For his first Dakar victory, he had to wait until the year 2000, when he won the truck category for the first time, beating his great rival, the Czech driver Karel Lopras, by 16 minutes. Lopras was himself a legend, a six-time Dakar winner nicknamed Monsieur Dakar, the man who had defined the truck category through the 1990s. For a period, the two of them, the established Czech master and the rising Russian, represented the great rivalry of desert truck racing. But where Lopras's career was winding down, Chagin's was just beginning. That first win opened the floodgates. Chagin won again in 2002, this time by an almost absurd margin, nearly 4.5 hours ahead of Lopras across the entire race. He won again in 2003 and again in 2004, 3 consecutive titles, then a fourth in 2006. And then, after a few years in which the crown passed to his Kamaz teammate Firdaus Kabirov, Chagin returned to win a 6th title in 2010 and a 7th in 2011. 7 Dakar victories, spread across 11 years. 2000, 2002, 3, and 4, then 2006, then 2010, and 11. No one in the history of the truck category had ever come close. No one has since. It earned Vladimir Chagin a nickname that stuck, the Tsar of Dakar. The numbers behind his dominance are staggering. Take the 2010 Dakar, by then relocated to South America, running through the deserts and mountains of Argentina and Chile. That year, Chagin won 9 of the 14 stages, 9 out of 14. In a race where finishing at all is an achievement, where the terrain and distance destroy the majority of entrants, he simply took the fastest time on nearly 2/3 of the entire event. It remains a record for stage wins in a single Dakar in the truck category, and it is the kind of statistic that doesn't happen in modern motorsport, where fields are close and dominance is measured in fractions. Across his career, he racked up dozens of stage victories, a tally that places him among the most prolific stage winners in the entire history of the event, across every category, cars and bikes included. He was, quite simply, the most successful truck driver the Dakar has ever seen, and one of the most successful competitors of any kind in any machine the race has ever produced. Then, in February 2011, at the very peak of his powers, immediately after winning his 7th Dakar, Chagin did something almost no dominant athlete ever manages. He walked away. He announced his retirement from driving, at the top, undefeated in his final race. But he did not leave the team. Instead, he took over as the boss of Kamaz Master, and under his leadership, the Kamaz dominance did not fade. It intensified. To understand how a truck could dominate a race like this so completely, you have to understand the machine itself. And it is a genuinely absurd piece of engineering. A modern Kamaz Master racing truck weighs around 9.5 tons. That is the weight of roughly 6 or 7 family cars, combined in a single vehicle. It is powered by a huge diesel engine producing well over 1,000 horsepower figures. Around 1,150 brake horsepower have been quoted for the racing units. It carries a fuel tank holding around 1,000 liters, necessary for the vast distances of a desert stage. And despite its enormous size and weight, it can reach speeds close to 100 miles per hour across terrain that would destroy an ordinary vehicle. The engineering challenges involved in making something like this both fast and durable are immense. The suspension has to soak up impacts that would snap the axles of a normal truck in half. Landing 9.5 tons from a 30-meter jump generates forces that are difficult to comprehend. The cooling system has to keep 1,000 horsepower diesel from melting itself in 50-degree desert heat. The tires have to survive rock fields that would shred ordinary rubber, and the crew has to be able to change them fast wherever they fail. Over the years, Kamaz continually reinvented the truck to chase both speed and reliability, and to stay within the shifting regulations. At one point, the governing body banned the mid-engine layout that Kamaz had used for better weight distribution, forcing the team to design a completely new truck at short notice. They did it, and they kept winning. Later, they moved the cab rearward and added a bonnet, a nose ahead of the crew, improving weight distribution and, crucially, reducing the spinal punishment the drivers absorbed over thousands of kilometers of pounding terrain. But raw numbers don't capture what makes these trucks so extraordinary to watch. It's what they do with all that mass and power. A Kamaz does not tiptoe over the desert. It attacks it. It hits dune crests at full speed and launches itself completely into the air, all 9.5 tons of it airborne, sometimes clearing 30 meters or more before crashing back down onto the sand and simply carrying on, as though flinging a house-sized truck through the sky were a perfectly normal thing to do. The image of a Kamaz in mid-flight, sand exploding beneath it, is one of the defining sights of the modern Dakar. It should not be possible. Physics says a vehicle that heavy, launched that high, should shatter on landing. The truck does it anyway, again and again, stage after stage, year after year. For the drivers, the experience is brutal even when everything goes right. Inside the cab, the crew is strapped in tight and still gets thrown around violently, absorbing impact after impact for hours on end, in temperatures that turn the cabin into an oven, breathing dust, fighting a steering wheel that kicks back with every rock and rut. Driving a Kamaz across a Dakar stage is a feat of physical endurance as much as skill. The drivers train like athletes because the truck demands it. A moment's lapse in concentration at 100 kilometers per hour over a dune, and 10 tons of truck becomes 10 tons of catastrophe. Getting a machine like this to survive is a science in itself, and Kamaz Master became obsessive about it. The team tests its trucks in some of the harshest conditions imaginable, including running them in the frozen Arctic north of Russia, launching them off snow ramps to simulate the punishment of desert dunes. In one such test, a Kamaz was recorded flying more than 30 meters through the air off a snow jump, subjecting the crew to enormous forces on landing. The logic is simple. If the truck can survive being thrown through the air onto frozen ground in the Arctic, it can survive the dunes of the Dakar. And the crews are not just drivers. In the Kamaz Master philosophy, every member of the three-man crew, driver, co-driver, and mechanic is a fully trained technician, capable of diagnosing and repairing the truck in the middle of nowhere when something breaks. This is not a minor detail. It is arguably the single greatest reason for the team's dominance. On a race where help can be hundreds of kilometers away and a broken vehicle means the end of your Dakar, the ability to fix a catastrophic failure yourself out in the dunes with the tools and spare parts you're carrying is worth more than any amount of horsepower. Time and again, a Kamaz crew has suffered a problem that would have ended anyone else's race: a broken drive shaft, a failed component, damage from a heavy landing, and simply climbed out, fixed it in the sand under the desert sun, and driven on to win. The team drills this relentlessly. Their drivers study the trucks until they know them as intimately as the engineers who built them, because in the desert, that knowledge is the difference between finishing first and not finishing at all. There was also the matter of the Blue Armada. For most of its history, the Kamaz Master trucks ran in a distinctive blue and white livery, and as they swept through the desert in formation, multiple trucks, running at the front, dominating the category, rivals and fans alike began to call them exactly that, the Blue Armada. A fleet of blue giants that arrived every January and left every February with the trophy, year after year after year. For the rival teams, the Dutch, Iveco and Man squads, the Czech Tatras, and others, the sight of those blue trucks appearing in the dust behind them carried a particular kind of dread. As one description put it, a Kamaz in your mirror was a sight no Dakar competitor ever wanted to see. It meant the fastest, toughest, most relentless machine in the desert was bearing down on you, and there was very little you could do about it. Occasionally, the Armada was beaten. The Dutchman Gerard de Rooij took victories for Iveco, and there were rare years when a rival got everything right and a Kamaz got something wrong. But those were the exceptions that proved the rule. In the truck category of the Dakar, for a generation, Kamaz was the default winner, and everyone else was the underdog. After Chagin retired from driving and took charge of the team, the dominance simply continued through a new generation of drivers. Eduard Nikolaev, a former mechanic who rose through the ranks, became a multiple champion, winning the Dakar several times over. Andrei Karjanov won it. Dmitry Sotnikov won it. Anton Shibalov won it. The faces in the cab changed, the years rolled by, and still the Blue Armada kept arriving at the finish first. Chagin, now directing from outside the truck, had built something that outlived his own driving career, a system, a culture, a way of doing things that reliably produced winning trucks and winning crews, decade after decade. Between its first win in 1996 and 2022, Kamaz won the truck category of the Dakar, an astonishing 19 times. In the modern era, entire Dakars would pass with Kamaz trucks filling the podium first, second, and third. An entire category effectively turned into a private contest between different crews of the same team, while the rest of the world's truck manufacturers fought over the scraps behind them. That run came to an end in 2023. Following the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the FIA required competitors from Russia and Belarus to compete under a neutral flag and to sign a declaration condemning the invasion. Kamaz Master declined to sign, and as a result, the team has not taken part in the Dakar since redirecting its efforts to domestic events such as the Russian Rally Raid Championship and the Silkway Rally. After nearly 3 decades, the Blue Armada's reign over the Dakar was over, not beaten on the sand, but halted off it. It is difficult to overstate how unusual this is in motorsport. Dominant cars and teams come and go. A manufacturer might rule a championship for 3 or 4 years before the rest of the field catches up, or the rules change to rein them in. Ferrari's great runs in Formula One, Audi's dominance in sports car racing, the crushing years of one team or another in rallying, all of them measured in a handful of seasons. Kamaz's dominance lasted, on and off, for the better part of 3 decades. It spanned 3 completely different continents as the Dakar itself moved from Africa to South America to Saudi Arabia. It survived the retirement of its greatest driver, Vladimir Chagin, who simply moved from the cab to the manager's chair and kept the winning machine running. It survived rule changes designed, in part, to make the racing more competitive. It survived generational change in its lineup as young drivers replaced the veterans and carried on exactly as before. And through all of it, the essential truth held. When the trucks lined up at the start of the Dakar, everyone else was racing for second. What makes the Kamaz story so compelling is the sheer improbability of the image at its heart. A truck, the least glamorous, least agile, most utilitarian kind of vehicle imaginable, a thing built to haul cargo and equipment across rough ground, turned into a machine of genuine grace and violence, flying over desert dunes, catching and passing rally cars, and dominating the hardest race on Earth for a generation. It took a company built on making rugged industrial workhorses and, through obsessive engineering and some of the finest desert drivers who ever lived, turned those workhorses into the undisputed kings of the desert. There is something almost poetic in it, the idea that the humblest, heaviest, most unlikely vehicle in the race became its most dominant force. That a truck, of all things, would be the machine that ruled the Dakar. The Dakar has produced many legends, great drivers, great cars, great motorcycles, names that echo through the history of the sport. But nothing quite captures the madness and the majesty of the event like the sight of a 10-ton Kamaz airborne above a dune, 1,000-horsepower engine roaring, sand raining down around it, the desert stretching empty to the horizon on its way to yet another victory. It is one of the great spectacles in all of motorsport. And it happened because a group of engineers from a truck factory in Tatarstan decided, against all logic, that the biggest and heaviest vehicle in the race could also be the fastest. They took a truck, and they made it fly. If you want more stories like this, subscribe.